Joe Pullman here from craftworking.net. This video I'm going to show you the setup I use to get AT&T's network to work, and of course there's the way they do this is that when you buy public space it can't be subnetted, so there's no way of setting up different networks to be able to do routing on your public space. The interesting thing about this is that using at least the Cisco version or the Cisco solution I did is that in a normal firewall or in a normal router you can set it up in a layer 2 bridge mode. So the interfaces will be set up with no IP addresses, and it will be basically connected, so you can have two interfaces on the same network. In a router you just can't do this. Each interface has to be on its own network. But since I can't do that, bridging is the only solution. In the firewall, or the router that I'm using, there's two networks. There's my private space, the 192 address, which everybody uses, and then the public space that I bought from AT&T. And the way this is done in a firewall or in a router is that you set up what's called integrated routing and bridging, or IRB. What it does is the IRB is interface, a layer 3 interface that's attached to the bridge, so this bridge will be able to route layer 3 packets from one interface to another. And then the private space is going to be on its own interface, and it's going to have a completely different network. The routing will be set up in the firewall to be able to default route the information or the data coming from the private network to the public. So the way you get out to the internet is through the BVI interface. The BVI interface is going to have one of the public, let's say one of the public IP addresses. So this is where you're going to route your traffic to. And then due to reasons where I'm using sub-interfaces, because I ran out of, I don't have enough ports on the firewall, I ended up doing sub-interfaces and then setting VLANs to them, basically for management on one of the interfaces. So I can get in and manage the box. Really don't need it because I can use the private space, but I wanted out of band management on a completely separate network, so that's the way I set it up. Now on the DMZ firewall, it's set up in bridge mode as well. There is no routing on it, so I'm not the other interface, which is I do have a private space just for management, but I don't want it to route. I don't want to use it to pass traffic from the private to the public. So this interface, or this particular DMZ firewall, is set up in concurrent bridging and bridging and routing. So what this means is that there is no routing between one interface and the other. It's all strictly a layer 2 bridge, acts like a switch, and that's all you do with it. So in essence, effectively on the DMZ firewall, there are there's no IP addresses. This is beautiful because you don't want to use burn through your public space by putting your public IP addresses on this particular router, and that's all it does is it just passes the connects one interface to another on the same network. On the other side of that DMZ firewall, it goes into the virtualized environment on a separate virtual switch, and this is where I've got all my publicly routed virtual machines, such as my web server and some Exchange servers, things that I want to keep on the public network. This is how you get around doing the forwarding, port forwarding, because you're using public space, and you don't have to worry about port forwarding because that's a NAT thing, and you're not doing natting with public space. So this is getting around. This is why I say you change the IP address when you do trying to port forward the same port to two different machines. So this is how it's done. And then when to get to these machines that are on public space, you go into your DNS server be it yourself or someone else, and then you basically do the physical resolution to that particular IP address. It's publicly routable. You don't have to worry about trying to do net translations on it. So that's how it is. So, but here's the diagrams set up to do the configuration.